check 1, 2. Good morning.
I would like to call the meeting to order at 10:05 a.m. I ask that as a courtesy to all that ensure that you have silenced your cell phones. Also, I'd like to remind our directors to turn their microphone on and off each time they speak to help with the audio and video recordings. For the record, I'll note that the public meeting notice was properly posted as required by law, and the notice of this board meeting was provided to each of the directors. Directors Tom Abraham, Christine Giese, and Austin Ruiz indicated that they would not be present for this meeting. We've now reached the portion of the meeting where we've set aside time to hear from you, the general public. Those interested in providing comments by filling out one of the cards available at the receptionist desk will be called to approach the podium to make their comments at this time. Seeing that no one wishes to speak, we'll move forward to the first agenda item, which is report and possible discussion on General Manager CEO report by David Collingsworth, Chief Management CEO.
Good morning, everyone. Presiding officer, I have no report this morning.
Very good.
Really?
Today, we'll move on to agenda item number 11. The Board of Directors will conduct a closed meeting and executive session on the following matters: to consult the attorney regarding litigation and/or settlement offer with respect to the DeCordova Bend Dam miscellaneous improvement trolley project pursuant to the authority granted by Section 551.071, the Texas Open Meetings Act, codified by Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. B, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property in Hood County pursuant to the authority granted by Section 551.072 of the Texas Open Meetings Act. If you are not specifically involved in the presentation of the first executive session agenda item, please excuse yourself from the boardroom at this time. With each executive session item, time will be allowed to clear the boardroom and call the next presenter or presenters. We ask that the public please wait in the break room in order to keep the hallways clear until the executive session is finished. The Board of Directors hereby reconvenes into open session at 11:35 a.m. Is there a resolution for the board to consider?
We good?
First agenda item.
Resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to execute a settlement agreement as a result of mediation to resolve issues associated with the Lake Granbury Trolley Replacement Project.
Reading of the resolution, I have a motion made by Director Leslie. Is there a second? Second by Director Crone. Any discussion? Please poll the board.
Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Boren,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director LaChance,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
To the second agenda item, is there a resolution for the board to consider?
Resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby declares surplus and no longer necessary to the business of the Brazos River Authority that certain plus or minus 7.883 acre tract of land, located between the 693-foot contour and the 696-foot contour Brazos River Authority datum, adjacent to the Brazos River Authority tract number 422, located in the Milam County School Land Survey Abstract number 348, Hood County, Texas. It further resolved that the General Manager, CEO, is hereby authorized to conduct a sale by public auction in order to effectuate disposition of such tract, which public auction shall be subject to such conditions as may be determined beneficial to the BRA. Be it further resolved that the Brazos River Authority shall retain a permanent flowage easement over the tract to permanently and/or occasionally overflow, flood, inundate, and submerge such tract as may be required in connection with the operation and maintenance of Lake Granbury.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Motion made by Director Henderson, second by Director Huber. Any discussion? Please poll the board.
Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Boren,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director LaChance,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Moving on to regular agenda item number 2, report and possible discussion. Report of external audit plan by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer, and Aaron Wortham by Baker Tilly US LLP.
Good morning. I just wanted to let you know we have Aaron Wortham here from Baker Tilly. We're in our 4th year of a 5-year contract with him. We did have the audit and admin meeting at 8 o'clock this morning. There were a number of questions asked during the meeting, which Aaron will address. One was the experience that Baker Tilly had with river authorities, why you don't give an opinion on internal controls. They also asked the question regarding remote audit and how you do that, and talk a little bit more about single audit and how that's conducted and what the dollar limits were on that. There was also any additional scope of work that was added to this audit. And Aaron will talk about that. And I think those were the only questions we had. That was it, I think, on questions for Aaron. So with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron to give his report and any questions you might have with that.
Afternoon. Again, my name is Aaron Worthman with Baker Tilly. We've been engaged to conduct the audit for this year. To answer the question before, so our firm and myself specifically work with a number of your peer entities throughout the country. Some of the river authorities that we conduct the audit of, Lower Colorado River Authority, Guadalupe Blanco River Authority, San Antonio River Authority, just to name a few. But I'm pleased to present our audit plan for the fiscal year 2022 audit. What I want to do is I just want to go through quickly the lead engagement team, talk a little bit about the scope of the audit timeline, some of the required communications that we have as you charged with governance, go through some areas of emphasis, discuss our audit plan, and then discuss briefly accounting and audit updates. So the engagement team, again, is going to be myself. We also have Sarah Slaughter as our senior manager and Ryan Tyler as our audit manager. Good news is these folks have been on your audit since year one. So we have good continuity with our audit team. We take a look at the deliverables for the audit. The biggest thing is we're conducting an audit on your financial statements in accordance with U.S. generally accepted standards within the United States. That's the general audit. These are the audit standards that we're required to follow as we conduct your audit. In addition to that, we audit you in compliance with government auditing standards. Those are additional standards relative to our continuing professional education of our audit team, the supervision of our audit team, quality control of our audit, due care, and independence. So we issue opinion on that as well. And then lastly, we conduct a single audit, which I'll talk about in a little bit. At the end of the audit, in addition to those deliverables, we have one deliverable for you folks. That's our audit results letter. Within that, it will contain our required communications to you charged with governance. And then also, if we identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls, we will communicate those in this letter as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Taking a look at the audit timeline, we conduct our planning fieldwork in June. Our preliminary fieldwork was conducted in July. Right now, we're doing our communication with EU charges governance. We have our final fieldwork scheduled for October. Draft reports will be issued in December, and then we'll present our final results to the meeting in January, consistent with prior year timeline. Some of the required communications I want to touch on briefly. I had mentioned before that we do provide an opinion on your financial statements. One thing I did want to touch on, we do not provide an opinion on internal control. However, if we detect any breakdowns in controls that are material or significant, we're required to communicate those. What we do, though, is we do test your controls, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Another item I want to touch on is materiality. Materiality really sets the stage for the audit and really drives a lot of our testing, that and risk. When we look at materiality, we look at qualitative materiality and quantitative materiality. And we often get asked by governing bodies, well, what exactly is materiality? And materiality is basically anything or any error that would change the users or would change the decisions of the users of these financial statements. So again, we look at that qualitatively and quantitatively, and we design our audit tests around that. A couple other items. I just wanted to make sure that you folks are aware that management and the governing board, the responsibility for appropriateness and quality of accounting policies and practices, where it's the auditor's responsibility to form and express the opinion on those financial statements. Other key items I wanted to discuss, one is independence. Obviously, that's a huge topic right now with the profession, and I'm pleased to report that our firm and every individual on that audit is independent in fact and appearance with your organization. Another item I want to touch on is our use of specialists. We actually use a company called Harvest that will determine and confirm the fair value of all your investments. In addition to that, we use an information technology individual, a certified information systems auditor, to work on the IT portion of the engagement. And I'll touch on that a little bit in a second. When we take a look at the audit, identified a couple significant risks for this year. One is management override of controls. So if you look at, what could go wrong with financial reporting, it's always going to be a circumvention of a control policy where management would override those controls. That's the biggest risk we have. And in addition to that, we have improper revenue recognition due to fraud. And I wanted to touch on is if you were to go about 10 years ago, the only communications you would generally get from your audit firm would be the year-end audit results. You may or may not get a pre-audit presentation. Well, the profession now requires that we have a two-way communication, which means in addition to my presentations, we also reach out to certain governing body members and conduct fraud risk interviews. In addition to that, we do ask for and welcome your input into the audit process. So if you folks have any concerns or thoughts or areas that you think warrant additional attention, we would certainly want to know about that. And you can discuss that with me offline and contact me offline. But again, note that we welcome and encourage any comments that you folks have. So if we would take a look at the audit as a whole, I'd say roughly 30% of what we do has to do with internal controls, documenting your internal controls, testing your internal controls, most of which would be information technology based. So much so, again, that we have the certified information systems auditor that conducts the audit as part of our audit team on that portion. But that's about 30%. 40% of what we do then is specific to our substantive testing. That would be take a look at your cash and investments, confirming those amounts, looking at your fixed asset additions, retirements, confirming those items with source documentation. Basically the nuts and bolts of our audit, if you will, and that's about 40%. And the remaining 30% has to do with the planning of our audit and then the financial reporting. Mentioned earlier about the single audit. So if you've received $750,000 or more in your fiscal year, we're required to perform an audit of those federal awards. That's known as a single audit. We'll focus our attention on any of your major programs. We obviously do sample selections. We test those on a sample based on our sample sizes. We test the compliance with certain provisions of your laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements. So we'll take a look at that. This is a pretty specialized area, so much so, in fact, I'm actually not the partner on the single audit. We have one of our single audit experts that is the partner of that engagement. But again, this is the single audit piece that we conduct. And then one thing I want to leave for reference is just some detail relative to what do we do is in each major part of the audit process, whether it be planning, final field work, or audit completion. As I mentioned before, materiality, we determine that in planning, and that really sets the stage for our audit. For final field work, that's when we do these substantive tests that I discussed earlier. And then in our audit completion phase, obviously we spend a lot of time on your financial statements, reviewing those disclosures. We will ask for communications from your attorneys to weigh in on contingencies, litigation, things like that. We also look at subsequent events. So even though we provide an opinion through your fiscal year, we are responsible for any events from the end of your fiscal year through our audit report date. And if we identify any material items for your financial statements, we'll disclose those within your financial statements as well as subsequent event notes. With that, I will open it up to any questions or any other discussion items any of you folks may have?
3.5 questions. 4. This is your last year or the fourth year?
This is the fourth year of a 5-year.
So you got this year, one more left.
Correct.
Got it, okay. Do you contemplate having a single audit?
I believe we do. David can confirm. Are we over the 750?
Okay. Have you taken the recommendations of the Senate, the Sunset Commission? Have you taken the recommendations of the Sunset Commission into consideration in identifying your areas of emphasis?
We have.
Very
We
good.
looked at those findings.
Outstanding. With respect to single audits and 2 CFR 200, what would you say are the usual areas of concern or stumbling blocks with respect to an audit?
Say that again.
With respect to 2 CFR 200, what would you say are the most usual areas of concern or the stumbling blocks in connection with the single audit?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest things we always see is whenever there's new programs, right, and understanding those program requirements. So a big part of what we do is we have to make sure, depending on the program, we have all those listed, and we look at all those items and test all those items accordingly. So I'd say anything that's new, like a lot of the CARES funding, when there's CARES funding, those tests, because that's new for the client. It's also new for audit firms as well. There's a lot of scrutiny under these single audits, and as such, our firm really devotes a lot of time into this area and also restricts the individuals that can work on that, given the complexities. So again, I'm not the lead audit partner on that, but we have one of our single audit experts that comes and leads that portion of the engagement. The good news is with our firm, I think we conduct the third most single audits in the United States, our firm does. But again, it's a pretty specialized area, as you had mentioned. Number of risks and quite a bit of attention goes into those federal single audit requirements and testing.
Your presentation and obviously good job. It's like you mentioned to us this morning, your expertise is working with river authorities. And so we appreciate all that you have done for us. Thank you.
Sounds great.
David, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on medical insurance by Monica Willis, Human Resource Manager. Monica, are you in the house? On.
We're back.
This is our annual insurance agenda item, asking the board to provide David the authority to enter into any contracts we need to continue our medical insurance. And again, this year, we're going to ask that we continue our medical insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield. They came in with a 3% increase. Started with an 8.7, and Hub, our insurance broker, I guess you could call them, negotiated it down to 3%. It's the same amount that we had an increase last year, and over the last 2 years, we've had some higher medical premiums or higher medical claims that have caused the increase. We've been with Blue Cross for the last 7 years, and during that time, we've only seen an 8.7% total increase, including the 3% for next year. So although it's an increase to premiums for next year, it is overall a good story for our plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so are there any questions? I think we can go to the next one. Is just agenda item. I didn't have any slides.
Questions? Please read the resolution.
Whereas the Brazos River Authority has maintained a relationship with Hub International since 2015 to provide benefit consulting services. Whereas the Brazos River Authority has maintained a fully insured medical plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas since January 1, 2016. Whereas Blue Cross Blue Shield is increasing the rate of medical premiums for the Brazos River Authority by 3% for an approximate increase of $90,000 for the 2023 plan year. And where estimated total cost of medical premiums for the 2023 plan year will not exceed $3,300,000, and the funds budgeted for medical premiums in FY 2023 are adequate to pay the medical premiums as quoted by Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to enter into all agreements necessary to continue the relationship with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas to provide the Brazos River Authority a fully insured medical plan at the rates quoted for the 2023 plan year and within the financial parameters set forth in the FY 2023 budget.
For the reading of the resolution, a motion has been made by Director Henderson to adopt. Is there a second? Director Crone, please pull the board, or any discussion? Please pull the board.
Weaver,
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director LaChance,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Agenda item number 4, report and possible discussion on projects update by Blake Cutler, Technical Services Manager. Blake.
Good morning, Mayor and members of the board. Today, we are going to, with this agenda item, provide an update on where we are with project delivery from a portfolio perspective. As some of you may recall, we did this update last year around this time. I think it was actually in July, but not necessarily in that instance digging into a particular project, but just looking at where we are with the progress of projects as a whole. So we're going to do something similar here today. I'm also going to talk about some upcoming board actions that you'll see, or our requests for board actions at future board meetings. So I'll touch on a few projects there as well. So with this, I know this is a lot of information here, and I don't expect y'all to read all of it, nor am I going, or am I going to read all of it. Basically, the takeaway here is I wanted to provide an update on the project management office. So the project management office has, I think we stood it up in 2020. So it's been up for about 2.5 years now. So basically what the project management office does, it's a supportive body for project management throughout the organization. So making sure that we're doing all of our project controls the same way, our budgeting, our scheduling, building our scopes, all of our processes, whether it be contract development or whatever we're doing, we're all using the same templates and managing projects the same way across the basin. So we've gone through a lot since that implementation date. As you can see here, our mission statement for the project management office is to support the BRA mission by developing and implementing best practices, methodologies to train, equip, and enable project managers to deliver projects that exceed stakeholder expectations. And so any actions that they do are in line with that. They're the ones who make sure we meet all of our RMC dates. They're the ones who try to keep us on schedule and within budget and everything like that and keep projects moving forward. This has been, I really, hats off to that department. This has been a great, another tool that we've added to the organization to move projects forward, to progress projects. And this isn't, just them alone. I mean, this is the organization as a whole. It takes our engineers, our project managers, our sponsors, everyone involved here to make this happen. But just wanted to give you all a brief update on what we're doing with the project management office. And this isn't anything that, okay, we check that box and we're done, we're moving on to something else. This is something that we'll continue to visit our processes, our tools, all that type of stuff on a regular basis to try to make us more efficient, gain that next level in project management. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this slide before. This is a typical life cycle of the project. One of the big things that we're doing with the project management office right now is we're exploring the Project Management Institute. And that's kind of the, I guess, industry standard for project management as a whole. Not necessarily particular to governmental entities or private entities or anything like that, but it's how you manage projects on a uniform basis, no matter what industry you're working in. So one of the things that you'll see, the changes here, is a color coding up here. We've now kind of grouped those into the project management phasing of projects, or Project Management Institute phasing of projects. So we have our initiating phase up here in green. A lot of that work there happens before we start tracking an active project on the books. This is where we're getting in the room, brainstorming, understanding the objectives and different things that are going into projects before it even hits the annual operating plan and approved here by the board. The next phase, of course, is a planning phase. That's when we are developing our solicitation, better understanding what those objectives and goals are that we're trying to accomplish, putting together contracts, all that good stuff. And then once we execute a contract for the assessment, design phase, construction, that's when we roll into the execution phase. So there that's when we're completing the work, and then of course the closeout. I'll show you the change in these colors of the phasing to let you know that moving forward, which we're going to try to start doing more of these project delivery updates, maybe not necessarily from a portfolio as a whole, because I don't know over 2 months with our project spanning multiple years that you'll see a whole lot of difference there. But we're going to start coming to you more with project delivery type stuff, and a lot of our reporting functions will be in line with this phasing here.
Blake, go back real quick and explain those black lines, that RMC process, please.
Sure. So the RMC process, or the Risk Management Committee, that was put in place, I think it was maybe around the 2018, 2017 timeframe, somewhere in there. But basically, that's a way that we manage risk as an organization on project-related stuff. And it doesn't necessarily have to be projects. There's other things that we can bring to that risk management committee. But it's made up of members of management team that have interest in that project. So basically, anytime we come for a board approval, any critical milestone for that project, that's a point where we all get into the conference room. We go through a formal presentation. We talk about all the project controls, the schedule, scope, and budget, and make sure that there's no concerns from anybody or anything that we're not considering. So it's a checkpoint for us to help control those different risks. Is that what you look for? Right. Okay. So again, here's the colors that with the phasing for the Project Management Institute. Last year, I think we just provided the 2 years on the movement of projects here. So what we're looking at is the planning, executing, and the closing phase. So if you look early in, say, 2021, you'll see we had 8 projects that were within that planning phase, trying to get contracts developed, all that type of stuff. That's a lot of the work that we're not having expenditures hit the books yet. It's captured more in overhead and in department overhead than actually per that project, because we haven't officially set up a project yet. We're still trying to get things rolling there. 18 in the execution and then 1 in the closeout. So when I first came to Tech Services and we were standing up the PMO and trying to really progress projects, we had a backlog of projects. So there are a lot of projects that we were working, so we didn't activate projects for a couple of years. We needed to really understand, what does a normal workload look like for that project group? What can we take on? Let's understand that before we start opening up new projects, because the worst thing we want is activate a project and it sits there and nothing happens with it. So that's kind of what you'll see there. You'll see from the transition from 21 to 22, you don't really see a whole lot of projects brought on into the planning phase. You'll see the transition from, if you look at In FY21, the 8 to 18 versus in 22, the 5 to 20. That's us transitioning those projects out of the planning phase into the execution. And you also see in 21 or in 22 where we closed out a few more projects. 22 to 23, we were moving projects. We were actually able to activate 5 additional projects off of the capital improvement plan. So we brought those basically from those projects out in the future, brought them online and started working those. And so that's kind of what you're seeing, 22 or 23, 24 timeframe. 24, of course, is planned. This is, what we're thinking things are going to look like, but that's kind of the allocation of projects in those different phases. Again, a lot of information, a lot of colors. One thing I want you to focus on is the red. Over the years, we've been talking about construction. Construction's coming. We're going to kick off all these projects. Well, that time's here. We've got projects moving. We've got the Tannergate project. We've got the low flow project. There's others out there where we're either in construction or really quickly approaching construction. This yellow these yellow lines here vertically are where we are at in time. Of course, our time schedule across the top, and then we have all the list of projects. I like to provide this. I know it's a lot of information, but I think it's a pretty cool way to represent, our portfolio projects, all the amount of work that, these teams are working. So upcoming planned agenda items. So again, as I said, I'm gonna go back one slide. Red is kind of the area that I focus on in a project, not necessarily diving into the weeds on one particular project, but taking that global view. I focus on the red. That's the transition from us putting all the pre-planning in, getting designs, assessment, things like that, and actually that project coming to fruition in construction. So as I said, construction, we've got a lot of that coming up, and I think that, that can be shown here with these upcoming agenda items. We've got, this is just a summary here, and I'll kind of jump into those, but copper ion generator, Park 5 access upgrades out at Limestone, and the spillway pump and piping project. So just very briefly, again, wanted to provide these updates. You'll see these in our GM update and also located out on our website, but so you're used to seeing the same format. This is what's provided. So we'll kind of provide some asset information there, high-level scheduling, a real high-level summary of the project, and then kind of where we're at with status. So the copper ion generator, that project's going to be on our Williamson County Regional Raw Water Line at the intake there at Steelhouse. Basically, what we're going to do is have a system to where we dose the water at the intake and going through the pipeline with a copper solution. And that is going to help us mitigate zebra mussels. So that's something that we'll put into place. And of course, y'all are well versed on zebra mussels, but this is a way to help with that maintenance nightmare that you can see, similar to over here. This is a way that, something we can put into place that helps keep that pipeline clean, running things as the way it should. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to come to we're going to come at a future board meeting for authorization to enter into probably enter into a construction contract. Where we're at right now with that is we've completed the design. The Corps of Engineers is currently reviewing that because Steelhouse is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer reservoir. So they're reviewing it. Once they give us the thumbs up, we're ready to go with putting the RFP out there on the street and hopefully potentially getting some bids and moving that project forward. Another one is a Park 5 access pier and park upgrades. So this project is halfway done. This project included some paving upgrades as well as replacement of the pier out there. So we've done all the paving upgrades for that park. Believe it or not, piers and boat docks are a challenge. So we have some requirements in place on dollar amounts for different projects on things that have to be engineered. Well, majority of dock builders and stuff out there do not go and get engineered designs when they're building docks, things like that. So it's kind of one of those we've tried in the past where we put something out for bid and trying to put that requirement for that dock builder out there to, hey, you go get this engineered stamp, signed and sealed, and come out and build this for us. Well, they're shaking their head like, no, we've got work lined up for a year. We're not going to chase that rabbit hole. So what we've done, we kind of changed thoughts on this. We've designed it internally with the help of some of our folks under IDIQ or indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts to help us get that a design for that pier. That's been finalized now, and we actually put the request for bids out earlier this month and are expecting those due here within the next couple weeks. We had 3 contractors show up out there on site for the pre-bid meeting, so we're getting some interest there. So hopefully we'll be able to come at a future board meeting and get authorization to get that project knocked out. Last one is the spillway pump and piping up at Possum Kingdom. So this is an intricate system, and I'm not sure how the way and I'll try to do this without my model, but the way the gates work up at Moore Shepherd Dam, they open and close by hydraulic pressure inside the gate chamber underneath the upstream and downstream leaf. If you think of a triangle, this being the gate chamber, you pump water in there, you float it, you undo your locking bars, it collapses down and water flows over the top. You reverse that system to bring it back up. With the chlorides and everything in that reservoir, a gate typically has a lifespan of about 10 years before we go in and just do a maintenance checkup, recoating, overhaul, anything that needs to be done. With us, of course, PK and not just PK anywhere is being subject to drought and everything else. I mean, reservoir levels fluctuate. With those gates being hydraulically driven by water inside that gate chamber, when the reservoir level goes down, you cannot operate those gates. You may ask, well, why do you need to operate a gate if the reservoir level's down? It's all due to maintenance. So we can still continue our maintenance schedule, meet those goals of doing our gate overhauls, all that type of stuff. So when those gates are down and when the water level's down, we can test the gates, make sure they proper functionally, and we can continue on to another gate. That's important because it takes a lot of effort by that group up there that does that to mobilize and demobilize off of a gate. You're talking about a crane barge moving stuff, pulling bulkhead panels and beams and everything. So it's a multi-day process to set up and be able to work on a gate. So this will be a little tool that basically we have a pump located down in the powerhouse that's been decommissioned, of course, but the powerhouse basically provides the flow of water or the it pulls off the bottom of the reservoir and pumps water to those different gate chambers out there on the different gates and provides that hydraulic pressure to be able to operate those gates when the reservoir level's low. So this project's been under design for quite some time. KCI is our engineer there, but we're at the 95% design point right now, hopefully wrapping up 100% design here soon and rolling out with an RFB shortly to follow. So an upcoming board action on construction there as well. Any questions?
So we've been putting these type of updates in your GM update. And then on a quarterly basis, we roll all of those in to one file and put those in the general manager's update. This was a reporting function that came as a recommendation from Sunset on how are you making sure that you communicate with your board on what your projects are. So our goal with what Blake did today is to take it one step further and bring to you at every board meeting the projects that, regardless of dollar amount, that we think are projects that you're going to see in the immediate future for approval or consideration, or projects where we have deviation from our project schedule or deviation from cost or any issue. So we're gonna keep putting these in the general manager's update, but we're gonna add this as an agenda item to better keep you in the loop with all of the updates on the projects. And I would remind you that any deviation from the contracts that you approve or significant deviations from timing, we're always going to bring that to the board anyway. Yes, ma'am.
Played right. Can you go back one slide, Blake? So, David, you played right into my thinking. This is just some feedback. I really like the right section of the project and the current status. A question that I had when I look at the bottom section, if we've spent 139 of the 450, and then I look to the left side and say this project's going to take us into Q3, so we have a whole year for completion of this project. I don't have a good, clear in my mind if the 139 that's good or bad of what we've spent. So I don't know if we're trending under or what we've approved, so maybe just to think about that. And then a second comment would be, you talked about your risk management team that really kind of talks through. I like the color codes of the 3 different sections of how you're following and tracking a project. I think just a general comment would be that I would probably challenge this risk team to look at it maybe after the fact as well. I mean, you think about dams, you're going to do a lot of the same projects in different areas. You might want to take some of these projects that you take to completion and look at what you were concerned about and what was brought out through the risk team when you talked about the project, to use that as part of your planning tool when you go to the same project in a different area or a new project. Just some feedback, just some thoughts.
Right.
That is, and I like the way you think, because that's kind of some of the things we're focusing on. One is we've been exploring internally kind of an earned value or something like that to show red light, green light where we're at with projects, so that way you can look at the budgeting and the scheduling aspect. Here, we're also beefing up the closing phase of our projects, because, yes, your point's well taken. In the past, yeah, check the box, we're done with that project, let's move on to another project. But now we need to, let's look at lessons learned. Let's look at things, what worked and what didn't work. Let's record those, and let's keep those in mind for future projects. Which project?
And
And
any one of those, that's fine. We can go in here and put indicators on the health of the project, where we are as far as spent versus time in the project, and yeah, but what do they mean?
And the concept of where we're at.
Sure,
we'll come up with something.
good stuff.
Thank you. So a final comment here, David. To you and to Blake, in 2015, when I got on the board, you got this process, nothing of this sort was established. And so the fact that y'all started with that risk assessment team and started talking that concept to where you are today, I think has come a long way with helping the board to understand the projects. And we have so many. And the fact that they're out there that we can track and read and see and get the history on, I think is amazing. You guys have done an awesome job.
Appreciate
Kudos.
that. And just moving forward, these project delivery updates, they may change in flavor. Like I said, if we just talk about portfolio performance over one meeting to the next, you might not be able to see a drastic change there, but we'll fill it in with some other stuff. We're going to do maybe, talk through our CIP or project prioritization or other facets of managing a portfolio project. So we'll have some other things that we'll touch on as well. Any other questions?
I particularly look forward to those updates in every GM report. It helps me because the process is so lengthy that sometimes I remember the copper ion generator, but it's nice to think, oh, okay, this is where it is now. And I like the ones that you have picked because it really helps me to see which quarter we've done the most in, where the money still is situated. They're extremely helpful. So kudos and compliments.
All right.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Thanks.
All right, moving to agenda number 5, discussion and possible action on the Brazos water snake contract by Tiffany Malzahn, Environmental and Compliance Manager. Tiffany.
So this is the first time we brought this to the board, but things are a little bit different. When we tabled this last time, we had a really good discussion and we heard your concerns. And one of the major concerns is BRA going this alone? And when we left that meeting, our plan was to go talk more to other organizations. But almost immediately after that meeting, and completely unsolicited, the comptroller of the state of Texas reached out to the BRA and said, we are too concerned in the Brazos water snake, and let's talk about who's going to do what. And since then, both Texas Parks and Wildlife and the comptroller's office are concerned and willing to spend money to go out and evaluate this. And I throw that as a precursor to Tiffany talking about the water snake.
I'll try to move through some of this quickly. As we've discussed before, this is a snake that is endemic to the Brazos Basin, meaning he only lives in our basin. It's a non-venomous snake. We have had, over the years, U.S. Fish and Wildlife asking questions about him. They haven't taken any action yet, but they're definitely aware that he's out there. And not only is he endemic just to the Brazos, he's endemic to a very small portion of the Brazos. So from Lake Whitney to the north up the Clear Fork system. So that's a very small range. So if U.S. Fish and Wildlife wanted to take action on him, they could justify it under their rules just based on the small extent of the snake's known range. Because if anything happens really severe there that affects him, he's gone. So why should we care overall? And some of you who've been on the board for a while have seen this before, is that the Endangered Species Act can and has impacted state water rights. And our ability to use water rights could be impacted if species are listed that are aquatic in nature. Just some examples of court cases, and one of the things you'll see is it's not always U.S. Fish and Wildlife being the aggressor or doing enforcement, but it's environmental action groups working the court system very well. And so you've seen all these different cases that have affected water supply projects over the United States, and this is just a highlight of the cases that are out there. Some of the examples of it outside of the court system having an impact: dam was never completed because the permitting requirements that they would have to do in the Columbia Dam region were too extensive, and that was a freshwater mussel impact. O.H. Ivy Reservoir in the Colorado Basin of Texas, they were required to make low-flow releases to benefit the concho water snake, which is a very similar snake to the Brazos water snake. And they had to allow discharges of sufficient size, so even when they got floodwaters, they had to let a lot of them go to help keep the channels cleaned out. And then after 2 decades of research by the Upper Colorado Municipal Water District and about $5 million of expenditures, they were able to prove to U.S. Fish and Wildlife that the snake was a lot more prevalent than anyone ever thought, but nobody really went to go look for it before it was listed. So they spent a whole lot of money after the fact in the long term, and in 2011, their petition to delist it was successful. And then the Cedar Ridge project in our basin, which was a Abilene-sponsored reservoir project, the project got tabled in 2018. But talking to the folks for the city of Abilene that worked on that project, that they had to establish an environmental flow regime, not only for freshwater mussels, but for the snake, and that their requirement for mitigation for their damages by Texas Parks and Wildlife was far greater for the snake than anything they were negotiating with U.S. Fish and Wildlife on freshwater mussels. Just took a couple of those things and looked at it if BRA were to experience a similar loss. The California State Water Project, where they reduced their water supply by 800,000 acre feet a year, which was approximately 8% of their system. The estimated cost to replace that lost water supply is $16 billion. If BRA suffered the equivalent loss of our existing system, that would be an annual loss of almost $5 million. Lower Colorado Municipal Water District and what they lost for the Concho water snake. Now, that's a much smaller system. They're in the very upper part of the Colorado Basin, but that would still, if we had an equivalent low flow release requirement put on PK and Granbury, that would come up to about $500,000 a year in annual revenues lost.
And to be really clear, that's revenue loss, not replacement cost to replace that water.
So in 2020, Texas Parks and Wildlife started also trying to get out ahead of the federal government to draft a conservation action plan for the snake. In their draft, they rely on the best available data. The last, range-wide extensive work was in the early 90s on the snake. But the same theme that we see time and time again in any place where there's an aquatic and there's a dam, the dam is pointed to as the sole cause of the impact. Now, population decline wasn't started to be noticed until that big 1990 study. Our dams had been in place for decades. So, the link that our dam is the actual fault is very weak, but it's still there, and it's the easy thing for environmental action groups to go to because it's not a native, naturally occurring structure. The need for the additional science. One, how can you write a conservation plan when you don't understand the species that you expect to be effective? That's one of the problems. But also, when we went out in the summer 2020 to try to gather some more data and help us develop what we want to do in our monitoring plan, we identified snakes and habitats they'd never been reported from before. We identified them in areas they'd never been found in before, and we found that their rate of snake fungal disease was about double of what had been previously reported. So why now? Texas is the place to be, and our population is growing, which means we're also getting a lot of attention for environmental impacts we've never experienced before. We also need a good understanding if our operations are impacting it so that we can defend ourselves if it ever comes to that. And it's far more cost effective for us to do work now to prevent a listing than to fight a listing. You saw that with the Upper Colorado Municipal Water District. They spent far more fighting to get something off because the standard is that much higher. Like David said, he took a little bit of my thunder out, so I'll move on real quick. Is the comptroller reached out. They would like us and Parks and Wildlife to kind of link arms with them to try to present a united front and show U.S. Fish and Wildlife that the state of Texas is working it. We've got it. You don't need to be here. You don't need to look at the snake. Go somewhere else. So as we discussed back and forth what we wanted to do, they very much liked the study plan I had put together. So basically, they took and carved out, and they have put out on the street for advertisement. In fact, I think their proposals were due about a week and a half ago to do basically what we were going to do on the reservoirs. We'll do the same or similar work on the river itself. And then Parks and Wildlife has already started implementing conservation strategies in the basin. And one of them was they had some money that they were able to use to do a habitat improvement project at Thorpe Springs Park in Granbury. It's across the lake from Hunter Park, where we already know we have snakes that are highly populous. So they went and purchased, and Connie's staff graciously placed a bunch of riprap of the specific size that the snake likes to live in. So hopefully we will have created the opportunity for some range expansion within Lake Granbury. We've recommended a 3-year study term. Honestly, the biggest piece for that is to produce data that's eligible for publication. The one thing Fish and Wildlife really respects is a published article. So getting enough reproducibility that we can really track from a juvenile that we tag to an adult phase, what habitats are they using? And the contract, we went out for RFP. We had one firm respond. I'm quite certain that's because it's snakes. Was BioWest. They are a firm that we're aware of. They're kind of a niche firm that specializes in species-related issues. total not to exceed for a 3-year term, $650,000. The contract does require a written notice to proceed between phases 2 and 3, so that if we happen to go out there and find 1 million of them the first year, we do have an off-ramp for the rest of the studies. And then, of course, it'll also require your authorization through the annual budget process. Other contributions, like I said, comptroller's study has been advertised for $500,000. They're going to work on PK in Granbury. They were issued in June. I believe their proposals were due on the 15th. Parks is working hard and fast on securing funds for their conservation strategies of their own funds. They already have $135,000 that they spent last year, had $200,000 going forward in this year and next year's budgets. One of the things they did say is with the comptroller money, and if y'all approve this project today, they can then leverage that money to go apply for other federal grants to bring even some more work in. They've also agreed to continue to do a free snake fungal disease analysis for us. If we'll collect the samples in the field, they'll get the analysis done. And a professor at Texas State University said the same thing. If we'll swab them for genetics, he'll run the genetics on us for free. I'm sure that's for some research he's wanting to do too, but it benefits us. And so I have if there's no questions.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Director Savage.
So, right now, it's not on any list, but we're trying to collect data that would help us prevent that from being listed.
It is on the state list of threatened species. It is not on a federal list yet. The state threatened and endangered species doesn't carry much teeth with it. You can't kill it. You know, you can't take a bunch of them and sell them. That's the only restriction. So yes, the goal is to try to collect data and for BRA, it's to really assess where are we.
But we're assuming that, whatever data we find is going to benefit us in that argument, but that's not always the case.
No.
I want to just point out, so I have experience in the refining industry and water and like Legionella. And, if you start looking for Legionella, then you've opened a can of worms and it's public data, and the people that we're concerned about that might come and create an issue for us, we could be giving them ammunition, so it's just an oversight concern.
Because I can't ever stand up here and promise you before I go out to do a study that I know what the result is. I know what I hope the result is, but I don't have a clue what it is. But I have never been hurt in a situation or I haven't been hurt as bad. No data, their instant assumption is going to be there's none of them out there. If I have something to fight with, I can make some arguments, but having no data rarely has been a benefit in an argument with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, even if it's not positive data, because they are always going to go to the absolute worst case scenario that they can, and that's what they're going to make decisions off of.
Director Amber.
David started by saying something about the comptroller and the parks and wildlife. It almost suggested that they would at some point fund what we're trying to do right now. Is that not?
No, that's not the case. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, they're willing to throw in their own money to help do the bigger study that we were initially hoping to do. But because of cost, we started whittling ours down. So that's what they're going to come in. And when the scientists all got in the room and figured out what needed to happen, they're going to take part of that cost and do it themselves.
Okay.
Was that the same amount that you came to us last time?
No, we whittled off a couple $100,000. We started, and I don't know that we ever even presented that to you, at $1 million, or just under $1 million. I think it was $955, and then we whittled back our study a little bit. And then the last time, I think it was $750 that we had brought.
Okay. Director
That's
Sanderson?
correct, $750. So we've
Okay.
saved some money and passed it around the cost.
All right. Any other questions?
I make a motion we approve.
Okay, we need to read the resolution for the record, and then we'll note that Director Lloyd has made a motion, a second by
Ford.
for Taylor, but please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to enter into a 3-year phased contract with BioWest Incorporated to conduct applied research on the Brazos water snake in the amount not to exceed $650,000.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. A motion was made, a second was made. I see no further discussion. Please pull the board. Yes.
Director Huber?
Yes.
Director Taylor?
Yes.
Director Boren?
Yes.
Director Fernandez? Director Henderson?
Yes.
Director Jimenez?
Yes.
Director Crum?
Yes.
Director LaChance?
Yes.
Director Leslie?
Yes.
Director Lloyd?
Yes.
Director Luton?
Yes.
Director Embro?
Yes.
Director Sanderson?
Yes.
Director Savage?
No.
Director Smith?
Yes.
Director Wilson?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6, report and possible discussion on 2022 CRP Basin Summary Report by Tiffany Malzahn, Environmental Compliance Manager. Tiffany.
Overall, you should have the links to the report in your book. One of the things I was going to show, and I'll be super quick on this, if Lisa can pull it up for me. Jenna, who works for me, unfortunately she couldn't be here today because she's got a little one who's sick, we wanted to refresh the report. It'd gotten kind of stale. It'd been a while, so she has taught herself a whole new web-based technology to use storyboards, which makes it a much more interactive experience, and you can navigate where you want to go quicker. So if you say, yeah, I've read this report for years, I just want to see what it looks like where I live, you can go straight to the watershed summaries. You can pick your watershed upper basin. It'll kind of bring you up. It'll give you a description of all the different segments that get regulated, bring a map. You can click on, oh, that's close to my house. Well, zoom in because it worked the other day when we tested it. There we go. So you can click, you can scroll through some of the information on this. You can see right here, does that segment or that site have any impairments or concerns? No, it doesn't. You can scroll down. I want to dig into it a little bit more. I can click on View BRA Data, and it'll take you right to our website where you can download the data. So it just gives you a whole lot more immersive experience. So that was pretty much, I know we're having a long day, so I won't wander through this a whole lot, but it is something that's new and different from what y'all have seen in the past. So it will be linked from our webpage. Right now, I tested this morning, the new link isn't out there, but that's because TCEQ was supposed to give us comments in May, and we got them at the end of August, so Jenna's scrambling, but I think she's got it just about ready to get reloaded with a link on our webpage. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action on Granger Lake Slope Stabilization Construction Services by Brad Brunette, Central and Lower Basin Regional Manager. Brett.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. This is an action item. We're going to be seeking authorization to enter a construction contract with a company called Geostabilization International for the slope stabilization project that we have at our East Williamson County raw water pump station. So y'all may remember, I think it was last September, you authorized us to contract with Gannett Fleming, an engineering company, to come in and evaluate the problems we were having with erosion there at the pump station. They've done that. They've prepared a design for construction of a system to help hard armor that slope and protect it from future erosion. And there's also going to be some concrete that's adjacent to the pump station that we're going to be replacing. And so we're at the point now, we've gone out for bids. We've got a contractor that we're ready to recommend that we contract with to take care of the problem. This is just kind of some of the major elements that we're looking at. And to help you better kind of understand and remember where we're talking about, you can see the pump station up here. This area in here is what you see the close-up right here. We've really had some periodic high water levels from really 2015 up through 2019 at the Corps of Engineers Reservoir there. And when those water levels were high, north winds pounding on that slope is when we saw a lot of this erosion. And what you're looking at there, it looks like solid hard rock, but it's really not. It's a marl type substance that when it gets wet, it's really soft and crumbly. So that's kind of a picture of what we're trying to mitigate here. This is an overhead view of the structure from some of the work that Gannett Fleming had done. They actually went back and looked at some aerial imagery since 2000, I believe 12 maybe, and kind of looked at the rates of erosion that we were seeing. You can see that we've lost as much as 11.4 feet or about 15 inches per year up the top right part of the photograph. Then if you move down toward the lower left, it's lesser amounts, but still about 3.5 feet there in the middle, or about 5 inches per year. And then 4.5 feet down at the lower left, or about 6 inches per year. So it's happened pretty quickly. So they've recommended a design to remediate the problem here. And this is a summary of what's being recommended, but mainly if you'll focus on the third and fourth bullets there, it's installation of a soil nail and a shotcrete wall. That's going to be on the upper portion of the slope. Maybe go back to the picture real quick. That soil nail and shotcrete is going to be on the upper portion up here, kind of where the vegetation is. And then the fabric formed concrete mattress, which is the fourth bullet, is going to be on the lower portion of the slope down here, kind of where you see the rock or the marl stuff. This just gives you an example of what those systems are going to look like. The top there, that's the fabric formed articulating concrete block mattress. It's just an example, but you see that at the top left, and then the bottom right is the shotcrete with the soil nails. And these are pretty big installations, but what we're talking about here at Lake Granger is about I think a 300-foot area that we're looking at remediating. The colors on these materials, we're able to color match them to the natural topography. And so again, this is an example of what we're going to have out there, but we'll be able to match the colors of both systems to the natural material that's currently there on the slope right now. All of this is on Corps of Engineers property, so we've got an easement with the Corps of Engineers right now that provides for us to operate and maintain the pump station. And interestingly, that easement requires us to immediately remediate any erosion issues. So we're working to comply with the terms of our existing easement here. But nonetheless, we've got to get some approvals from the Corps of Engineers. All of this is on their property, and so we've been coordinating with them even prior to when we selected Gannett Fleming to do the engineering work, but also as well as we've gone through that process. They're going to be requiring a mitigation plan to replace some trees as a part of this project. And so that's not what we're doing today. This contract that we're recommending today is strictly for the slope stabilization. And at the tail end of the project, we'll go out and hire another contractor to come in and replace some trees that the Corps of Engineers is going to require us to do. We also are expecting all of this to fall under a nationwide environmental permit, so we've been working with them on that. We've talked about the environmental permitting with Allen's Creek. This is going to be much simpler, being that it's going to be under a nationwide permit. And then they also have a 408 process, which is a permitting process that you have to go through with the Corps separate from environmental permitting anytime you're doing anything on their property. And then lastly, we're going to be amending the easement because the existing agreement that we have for our easement is not quite large enough to install the system that we need to put in place. So we're going to be working with them on amending that. And all these conversations are ongoing with the Corps right now. And we're going to make sure that we have all that in place before we actually start, any of the work here. So we went out for bids on this back on August the 26th. We had mandatory pre-bid meetings at the site on September the 7th. We actually had 5 companies attend the pre-bid meeting. We ended up receiving 3 bids that you can see here. And again, Geostabilization International submitted the low bid, which was about $1.6 million. Gannett Fleming's opinion of probable construction cost was very close to that. It was $1.49 million. So we came in just a little above, but pretty close to what the engineers thought we would. We've reviewed geostabilization's bid, and they've met all the qualifications that we had put in the request for bids. Both our staff here as well as the Gannett Fleming engineers are very comfortable with that company, and that's who we're recommending that we contract with moving forward. So I think I've got a resolution for you to consider on the next slide that would allow David to contract with Geostabilization, Inc. for that 1.6 million roughly, but we've added a 10% contingency to that in the event that we run into any issues moving forward. We wouldn't have to come back for small amounts. So that's built into the resolution that you'll see on the next slide. But I think this is all I have. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions before we go to the resolution.
Questions for Brad? Director Embro.
Duration of the permitting and the construction? What's the time frame that you guys anticipate?
We're hoping to get the permits done in the next month or two. Again, what we're telling the Corps of Engineers is we're complying with the terms of our existing easement, which requires us to take care of erosion. So we've been talking to the Corps of Engineers. You can't get them to give you a definitive time that they're going to give you your authorizations, but I think we're close because we've been working with them all the way through. And so we're hoping to get all the approval that we need from them in the next couple of months. Maybe sooner than that, but that's kind of what the expectation is.
How about construction?
32, which surprises me. I mean, if you look at, those systems we're talking about putting in, it's pretty big time construction work, but 32 weeks from notice to proceed is the estimated duration of the construction.
And the permitting has to occur before construction?
Yes, sir. We're getting approval to enter this contract, but we're going to not enter it for engineers, just in case there's a curveball or anything like that that we get from the Corps. But we wanted to go ahead and get this teed up because while it's not an emergency type problem that we've got, it and so we didn't want to wait and try to get the Corps approvals and then go out for bids and, add more time to the overall schedule.
Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to negotiate and execute a contract with Geostabilization International for construction services required to complete the Granger Lake Slope Stabilization Project for an amount not to exceed $1,737,000. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to approve change orders as deemed appropriate by the General Manager CEO, subject to the aforementioned not to exceed value.
Move approval.
The reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt?
Sanderson.
Move approval.
Motion was made by Director Henderson, a second by Director Crone. Please, any discussion? Please poll the board. Yes.
Director Huber?
Yes.
Director Taylor?
Yes.
Director Bourne? Director Fernandez?
Yes.
Director Henderson?
Yes.
Director Jimenez?
Yes.
Director Crone?
Yes.
Director LaChance?
Yes.
Director Leslie?
Yes.
Director Lloyd?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes. Yes.
The time is 12:47. We will take a break and come back at 1:15. Thank you. we're going to go ahead and start, and we will start with David Thompson has an announcement.
Thank you so much. Brian, if you can stand up, Brian Gray, he's our new purchasing manager. He's come from the city of Waco, 16 years there, so we're very pleased to have him join the organization. So I'm very excited about that.
Start with agenda item number 8, discussion and possible action on Lake Granbury low flow budget amendment by Mike McClendon, Upper Basin Regional Manager. Mike.
Thank you, Presiding Officer Flores, members of the board. This agenda item seeks to amend the FY23 budget and allow project delivery to be complete. This is one of those budget timing issues. So Brazos River Authority executed a contract in January of this year with Marine Diving Solutions and issued the notice to proceed. We came back in April, issued a change order. We obtained approval to replace the hydraulic cylinders that are associated with this project. Those hydraulic cylinders are utilized to help open and close the gates. So our action to utilize those or to acquire those cylinders and replace them, it caused a little bit of delay to the contractor. And then there were some supply chain issues that delayed him working. We had initially anticipated most of the work to occur, as you can see here, in FY22. We have to move that over to FY23, push most of that work to FY23. So it's really just a movement of from a timing perspective. And then the budget did go up here slightly from 5.6 to 6.1. And that's really an adjustment from an estimation whenever we were preparing the FY22 budget to actual contractual values at this point. But we're just moving the funds that we thought we were going to spend at the end of FY22 over to FY23. And I do have a resolution for your consideration, but I can answer any questions you might have as well.
See any questions? Go ahead and read the resolution.
Angelic voice of Steve Campbell.
Resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby approves and authorizes an amendment to increase the fiscal year 2023 Lake Granbury Low Flow Facilities Project capital improvement budget from $506,000 to $2,402,125 to cover timing differences in project delivery and an increase in the total project budget from $5,691,000 to $6,141,000.
For the reading of the resolution, is there a motion to adopt? A motion made by Director Luton, a second made by Director Wilson. Please poll. Any discussion? Please poll the board.
Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crum,
Yes.
Director LaChance,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embrook,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Number 9, discussion and possible action on fee schedule, new construction and activity permits by Connie Tucker, Reservoir Manager. Hi, Connie.
Thank you for having me. This agenda item is to ask the board to set a new fee for commercial activity permits. The commercial activity permits were recently approved in the new regulations that the board passed in May. The regulations allow for a commercial permit and fee. While this fee is, we're requesting this fee be approved, this is not the only fee that we have, and staff will be reviewing all fees and bring back suggestions to the board for revisions. Commercial activity includes barges, dock builders, commercial concessions, towing services, delivery services, et cetera. We looked at different agencies. I'm sorry, next slide. We looked at different agencies throughout the state, river authorities. There aren't a lot that do commercial activities for outside of marina facilities. The one agency is the San Jacinto River Authority. It charges $375 for a commercial permit and an additional charge depending on the boat size used. This permit is for the lakes only. I'm sorry, I was going to mention that. It's just on our lakes. We don't really have a good one-to-one comparison. However, our current work barge permit charges $1,000 a year, so that is what we are suggesting, and a one-time application fee of $75. We have a resolution, and I can answer any other questions.
Any questions for Connie? Okay, right here, Director Luton.
Would this apply to like all the people that are selling barbecue on the lake?
Yes.
Can't think of the name of the.
Yes, all the concessions, towing services, mobile repair, anything going on the lake would have the same permit and fee.
Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby approves and establishes a commercial activity permit fee application amount of $75 and an annual commercial activity operational fee of $1,000 per year.
Resolution, is there a motion to adopt? Motion made by Director Crone, second by Director Henderson. Any questions, comments? Hold the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director LaChamp,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Item number 10, discussion and possible action on Brazos G Regional Water Planning Contract Amendments by Aaron Abel, Water Services Manager. Aaron.
Good afternoon. This item requests authorization to amend our existing regional water planning contract with the Texas Water Development Board and the professional services agreement with Carollo Engineering to complete tasks identified in the regional water planning contract and to complete the sixth cycle of regional water planning. So as BRA is the political subdivision and administrative agent for the Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group, and we maintain an existing contract with the Texas Water Development Board that allows for the receipt of grant funds. These are grant funds that we're talking about from the Texas Water Development Board to utilize for the development of the 2026 Regional Water Plan. The initial funding to start the sixth cycle of regional water planning was released last year. We came to the board, I think, mid last year to get that done. So what we're doing is to ask for an amendment. So the Texas Water Development Board has now allocated additional funding to fully fund the budget and associated work to complete the development of the 2026 Brazos G Regional Water Plan. So the additional funding amount is about $1.49 million. So to receive this additional funding, we're asking for the amendment of the regional water planning contract and then also amending the professional services agreement between BRA and Carollo. And, the final 2026 Brazos G Regional Water Plan is due to the Texas Water Development Board in October of 2025. So since these are grant funds, this will have a zero net effect on the Brazos River Authority's FY 2023 budgeted ending uncommitted reserve balance and will have no effect on the FY 2023 adopted system rate. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Questions for Aaron?
Yep. Resolution, I think.
Resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to execute appropriate amendments to the Regional Water Planning Contract with the Texas Water Development Board in order to support Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group activities. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to execute appropriate amendments to the current professional services agreement to include additional scope of work tasks and to increase the total not to exceed amount to $1,755,980 with Carollo Engineering on behalf of the Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group to support activities for the 6th cycle of regional water planning.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Second. Motion made by Director Henderson, a second by Director Savage. Comments, further discussion, poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Fernandez, Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director LaChance,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Kimbrough,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Abstain because of my position on Brazos G.
And item number 12, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at this time. A motion made by Director Henderson, a second made by me, Director Flores. No further business before the board. We'll adjourn the meeting at 1:36 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Safe travels home.